Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Mishal Saeed, and in each episode, we'll explore the founding journeys of different entrepreneurs and business owners and find out more about how they came to where they needed to be. On today's episode, we have Craige Thompson, the founder of Invention2Exit, joining us. Craige is a seasoned patent attorney and electrical engineer with over 2 decades of experience in patent law. He's also a published author with books like the Patent Offense book and Patent Offense, and hosts the Litigation Quality Patent Cast podcast. His mission is to help inventors and entrepreneurs navigate the complex path from invention to exit. And with Invention2Exit, founded in 2023, Craige is empowering business owners to achieve significant financial success through strategic patenting, licensing, and networks. So let's dive into his story and discover how Invention2Exit is changing the game for tech entrepreneurs. And with that being said, Craige, I'm going to pass the mic over to you. Welcome to Founders Future.
Thanks, Michelle. It's very nice to be here and love to speak to such a great audience.
Absolutely. Well, we're thrilled to have you here, so let's dive in. So let's start off with the early days. Take us back to what specific problem did you see in the market for inventors that led you to create Invention2Exit? Was there like a particular moment or like a client experience that was like the catalyst, that aha moment?
Well, my entrepreneurial quest sort of started over a cup of coffee with my dad's best friend when I was an electrical engineer just out of engineering school. And this is relevant to business entrepreneurs. It's not about patents per se, but it is. And over coffee, my dad's best friend was telling me what happened, why my dad had passed away, things I didn't know or never knew, because they talked business. And I grew up in my dad's business from like 5 years old. It was a retail pharmacy of all things. And what he told me over coffee just kind of changed the course and what I'm doing today. It's all about when my dad spent back in the 70s and 80s, like a couple $100,000 on software and computers and machinery and equipment. He reinvented pharmacy to make it more efficient. And he got all the institutional contracts in our county in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. He got all of them, all the nursing homes. And he did business to B2B and B2C. And it was much bigger than the Walgreens around the corner, even though it was an independent pharmacy. He was really killing it as an entrepreneur. And so I saw my dad do this, and then suddenly what happened, Peter told me over the second pot of coffee, what really happened that led to the downfall of my dad's entrepreneurial business. Mm-hmm. And it was Congress changed some little sentence of a law in the Medicare Act or something. And suddenly, even though he had the most efficient, the best system of anybody in the country probably for how to do this cost efficiently, this law he wasn't protected against. His business was not protected, and he lost all those contracts, not because he wasn't the best, but because of some unexpected thing the government did. And suddenly he lost his business, and Peter told me, all your dad's banker friends stopped giving him help, and they wouldn't take his calls, and it all crashed coming down, and it affected him financially, personally, and health. I think he was very healthy. He was a tennis player. He died very young. I think of a broken spirit, and it had to do, my mission is to help. Ever since Peter told me that, I've been on a quest from engineering to law, now as a business owner for the last 16 years myself, and now an MBA, to figure out how I can help entrepreneurs not have the same thing happen to them by having an unprotected business. And the way I can do that is with IP and patents, because I'm an engineer. I went into patent law, been doing that for 25 years. But if you can protect your business in some way to avoid those problems, that's why I'm in business, to help people not do that.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, I can imagine that was quite a pivotal time for you, and you're passionate about paying it forward and really protecting business owners, because it is one of those subject matters that isn't widely discussed. We hear a ton about sales and marketing, but not a ton about the protections of business owners and like the legalities and like sort of those safeguards and parameters that are required. For our listeners and even potential clients that are tuning in, let's walk through how Invention2Exit generates revenue today, Talk to us a little bit about your core services, how you structure them for clients, and what exactly you offer.
Yeah, well, my law firm is called Thompson Patent Law, and I'm experimenting with different business models, like my dad did, the Invention2Exit. And by the way, I think it's really in one thing I just want to add is, if I could, Michelle, is just to say, if I had known back in 1980s, the mid 1980s, what I know now about protecting software with patents, my dad, we could have developed an entirely new business model. He had the software way ahead of everybody else, and with that software patent, he could have had a whole new business model. He could have gone in the software business and not be limited to this thing that he was subject to forces he couldn't control. So that's the thing that is just drives me. I can't go back in time and help my dad, but I can help people now. And what we do at Thompson Patent Law and Invention2Exit is some new things where we can help people with licensing and different consulting models. That's not the traditional law firm. Like Thompson Patent Law is a more conventional law firm of getting patents. And then we can expand, and Invention2Exit gives us different ways where we can work with clients more creatively, that they're not locked into the conventional law firm type of model. So that's what that's about. And we can talk about the way we do that. That's very different. It's in the subject of my book, which was a #1 bestseller, Patent Offense. If your audience would like to get it, you can actually get an executive summary for free on our website at thompsonpatentlaw.com under the resources, so that you can see that there is a way to do it that I invented that is that's really a game changer, so that you don't spend money on patents when you shouldn't, and you do spend money on patents when you should, and it helps you make that informed decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that you just mentioned that as well, because before even making any sort of action or step for a business, for your business, and this is more for our listeners, always do your research. Go for companies and organizations that are going to provide you with the literature and the education, like yourself, on making that informed decision. Really great stuff there. Now, more on the growth side of things. So from what it sounds like, you're an innovator and you've really come a long way from like developing this out. We'd love to learn more about acquisition and what that looks like. How are you currently acquiring clients right now for some of the services, like on the licensing side or like more on the consultative side? Like, what does that look like, and what channels have worked for you in reaching out to inventors and entrepreneurs? Is it mainly like LinkedIn referrals? Like, what's worked best for you in your case?
Well, right now we've been having a lot of growth. We've doubled in the last 12 months in terms of revenue. And so what the strategy we're currently pursuing is, we've really optimized a sales funnel with paid ads using just Google. And we found that's a solid base for us. And we're continuing to try to optimize that. But then that has certain limits. But as a base, it's very good. It is scalable to a point, but then we needed to bring in something else to scale up and expand. So in terms of marketing, we're adding in a lot more educational speaking opportunities. I do a weekly live webinar with some FAQ, but also as education, so that you can make an informed decision. I'm trying to support clients so that the biggest mistake I see people make with patents is sort of the Goldilocks problem. It's either they get patents when they shouldn't, or they don't get patents when they should. And so one of my big things, and why I wrote that book, is to try to help you make an informed decision about when you should and when you shouldn't, and give you some criteria. And that's one of the things I talk about in my weekly webinar, is the 2 criteria that you can use to make that decision. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, no, it goes back to what we were discussing earlier, more on like the education and really creating the awareness first before you can even have a conversation and see if it's a good bet. So I love the fact that you're already aware of that and you're implementing some of those things outside of the norm, which is paid acquisition. Now, on the note of acquisition, like moving forward with sales, what's been sort of the sales strategy that you've been implementing to have conversations with clients and also ignite partnerships and align on the best fit needs? Do you have like a dedicated sales team, or are you doing this yourself, Craig? Like, how is everything structured on the sales side?
Well, I'll tell you, attorneys are not necessarily good. Good patent attorney, you can't expect them to be a genius at sales. It's not the highest best use of a patent attorney's time is talking to potential clients I had to do that when I was hustling it 16 years ago with no clients, no sales experience. I had never sold a bag of popcorn as a Boy Scout or anything like that. I mean, I had no sales experience when I left the number one patent firm in the country to with no clients. I
Oh,
just had the skills and that, and then, but I had to figure it out all since then. But yes, we have a dedicated intake team that is, we have a professional salesperson who came from the banking industry, really
wow.
understands how to sell at that dollar level and above, and has had to been retrained to fit our client type, our client avatar, and speak to them, but with a little bit of training of retraining from kind of the standard sales. Without custom training, it's so much better because he's dedicated to just helping us get the right clients in and keep the wrong clients out and help people again make that informed decision whether it's a good fit for working with us, or they don't really have the right idea, or they think they need a patent and they don't, or they think, yeah, I think I need a trademark. And he talks to them like, I'm no attorney, but that
Mm.
sounds like you need a patent. Let's get you set up to have a consult. So yeah, that's so we use a non-attorney salesperson, what you call a dragon in our insider circle here, but so that we have a dragon that just does they go out and talk to clients, but it's a service because he's able to really spend the time with them. He's not trying to split his time and trying to sell. He's got no quota. It's really, we're trying to keep people out, the wrong people out, as much as we're trying to get the right people in.
Yeah, absolutely. Being efficient with your time, but also your team's time as well, and really working with businesses, entrepreneurs that can truly understand what it is that you offer. Now, from what it sounds like, the growth has been incredible. You pretty much figured out acquisition and you have a good idea of what the strategy looks like as well on the consultative selling side, per se, right? Because that's exactly what your team member is doing. If you can share with some of the entrepreneurs and listeners, particularly as they're starting to find their footing in their founding journey, what's been the biggest challenge that you're facing right now in like growing Invention to Exit? Is it finding the right leads? And I know we're kind of like on that topic right now, like not having people that may not align with what you offer, improving conversion, scaling fulfillment. What are you most focused on right now to keep this momentum going?
Right now, it's optimization. We've kind of got a really good team, and maybe I should back up because I think this is, I don't know if this really answers your question, but I think it does, is going back to mission and vision, and well, really mission and core values. It has a lot to do with getting the right team, the right people in the right seats. And when you don't have that, everything's harder. Right people who feel like they're in the right place because we're living our core values, and we do. I just was so happy because a team member last week said, we have core values and we actually use them to hire, retain, manage. And I talk about them. I think I heard, I don't know if it was Bezos or somebody talk about, heard a clip where he said, or it was Jobs, maybe an old clip of Jobs where he said, it really having that core values is your job as a CEO is to really keep repeating that and keep drumming it in. So at our monthly all hands meeting, I go through it. It's just like, hey, we're going to hit this again. Here's our core values. We're going to spend a couple minutes just making sure everybody knows it, and it's not just a piece of paper on the wall that nobody cares about. We actually use it to attract the right people and to offboard people who don't fit those core values. And I've had to do that many times over the years, and every time we stick to those core values, it gets better. And they're not, when somebody tries to come in and corporatize them, I'm like, that's not us. We're quirky. Our core values are quirky. But I think you get the right people, that's going to make everything else easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the toughest things for leaders, especially like yourself, is how do I really find the experts that can get in the room just like the way I do and have those conversations? Now, on that note of optimization, more for the listeners, we'd love to learn more about specifically what types of team members, like what types of talent you're looking for in order to really optimize all areas of service delivery within your firm right now. Is it kind of going back to finding more and more people in the sales team, on the marketing side, acquisition side, or on the fulfillment side? You can dive a little bit deeper. That would be great.
Yeah, so I mean, very particularly, sort of tactically, right now we're looking for a receptionist to answer the phone, just handling inbound, because I have this idea that when you're handling inbound, I don't want that, whether that's email, chat, on social media, if it's in Clarity Flow, if it's phone, all those inbound things, just you have to be available, and you can't be tied up doing something else. When you give somebody a task to do inbound and outbound, then when you're calling outbound and then an inbound call comes in, then what do? And every time an inbound call comes in, you have to stop, and then you've got that whole inefficiency of getting back to it and restarting it after you process the call. We're at a point where I want to add somebody who's just focused on inbound. They're just 100% available for inbound, so that then another person is just 100% focused on outbound follow-up, making sure people are showing up to calls. They get reminders if need be. They get help with the link if they're struggling with Teams or whatever, if they're technology challenge, and just being available for that. And you can't do that when you have to be available for both. So inbound versus outbound, I think on our intake team, I think we're going to specialize in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's beyond just the fulfillment. It's like, how do we create consistency? How do we create systems that are going to allow the right people being in place and sort of this assembly line process that you have to execute on a high level? Now, with everything you've accomplished so far and the success you've seen, I'd love to learn about your vision for the future. As you look ahead, what's top of mind right now for growing Invention2Exit over the next 6 to 12 months? Like, what does that runway look like for you?
Well, we're finding a lot more people are interested in IP monetization, patent monetization, and this is the topic I'm talking about in our weekly webinar. And we run a monthly challenge, a 3-day challenge, is 1 hour per day for 3 days. And we're with homework. And actually, if you do the homework, that one day is protecting your idea with patents. The day 2 is protecting your brand with trademarks, trade secret NDAs, copyrights. And then the 3rd day is, now we've kind of talked about all the IP. How do you monetize it? So what are all the monetization things? Because people come in, they're often thinking about, well, there's one way to monetize it, and they're not realizing, well, yeah, you can do that. Plus, you can actually do 5, 6 different ways of monetization,
Right.
possibly. And let's not leave that money on the table. That's why I get so into the business part of it, kind of going back to my dad and just trying to think, how do I maximize this? But also with the MBA and the M&A certifications and stuff that I have, and valuations of patents and those special things that we can do through licensing and buying and selling of patents and exits, so you can get a good exit, maximize the value of your IP before exit, because you can really pump up your exit valuation when you're selling your business. So these are some of the things that I think are really important, and that's where Invention2Exit can provide flexible arrangements, very creative arrangements that don't work in the traditional Thompson patent law firm, which is, you've got lawyers that are great getting the patents, but then what? Okay, so how do we really monetize that? So that's where the Invention2Exit stuff comes in.
Absolutely. Now, one last question on that front. We're already on this topic. How do you see the landscape of invention and patenting changing in the next few years? Like, and how is Invention2Exit positioning itself for that future? If you could share with some of our listeners.
Well, the old thing, AI, but that may, whether or not that's kind of going to be kind of calm down a little bit or not. I think, especially in the US, if there's more kind of onshoring, resurgence of manufacturing again, I think there's going to be a lot of people saying, well, how do we manufacture with more automation? And some of our clients are very big into automation. As electrical engineer, I was an electrical engineer for 10 years before I went to law school, designing products and in electronics. And I think that and software was going to create just tons and tons of IP opportunity, and that there's a ton of value in solving problems, identifying a problem and coming up with a solution. How did you do that? If that's a technological solution, some of that needs to be protected so it doesn't happen to what to my dad happened. In a way, you can monetize that, you can protect that, And once you protect it, it protects it from copycats and knockoffs and people who didn't do all the R&D investing from coming along and taking away all your market share. So that's why I think patents are a really valuable tool for some people. Now, well, 30% of the time we actually talk people out of getting a patent, which I think is pretty unique because we do that like in our first meeting, we start to try to, should we talk you out of this? And 30% of the time we actually do. And we actually say, this idea is great. You can still do it, but you shouldn't spend your money on a patent. So that's one of the key things that we do that I think is, I feel really good about and gets me excited because we're working with people who we've already vetted actually need a patent because they have the right invention and the business model to back it up. Because you shouldn't get a patent just because you can get a patent. You should get a patent that makes business sense. And that's what's in my book. And so again, there's that free resource for your audience, but we also do that weekly webinar where we can go explain that in more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. Doing your due diligence, but also you're being very transparent and very upfront about whether this is worth a case or not, a use case or not. And I'm sure our listeners and even some of the clients that might be tuning in are going to reach out to you and they're going to appreciate sort of that authenticity that you bring, at least within the patent law landscape, because there are quite a few companies out there, but you're genuine and you talked about the personal story and the why behind it. It's really phenomenal work. Now, with that being said, that wraps up another insightful episode of Founders Future. Thank you so much, Craige, once again, for sharing your expertise and vision with us within the legal and patenting landscape. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find some more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class sales systems. The audio will be available on Spotify and Apple, and we hope to catch you guys on the next one. Until then, keep innovating, and we'll see you all later.